Hi everybody, it's been a while since I posted something on YouTube, and today I've had the privilege to invite a good friend of mine who's also in the estate planning industry, and we'll be discussing about something that is property related but not property focused. So it's a lot about estate planning, a lot about wills, and it is something that is very, very important, especially when I'm serving a client and they start to ask about all this. So today I've had the privilege to invite Kenneth, a good friend of mine, Kenneth De Souza. Welcome, Kenneth, to the studio. Today is going to be a more chit-chat session about something that you do. So can you start by sharing what do you do actually?
So hi Nabil, thanks for having me here. It's really been a pleasure to work with you for so many years.
Yes.
How I would share what I do is like I'm an architect, and when someone wants to build a house, right, my job is to talk to them and see what they envision, what they want to build. And of course in that house, you have more than one person staying there, right? So you have the wife, the children. So actually this house affects many people. So my job is to talk to him, probably to the wife, to the beneficiaries on how they expect the plan to be. And of course, in building the house, you have electricians, you have plumbers, you have landscaping and all that. So I also work with other professionals like yourself, also tax advisors, lawyers, insurance brokers, to basically put together a plan, a solution for the individual, for how he wants to actually distribute his wealth.
Yeah. So talking about wealth, I think this is something that people do not plan for until something happens, which is quite a morbid thing to talk about. But I think what's more important is a lot of people think that estate planning in itself, the term estate planning seems very chim or very only for the rich. Is that true in your aspect? What do you think about that?
I think everyone needs estate planning. So I've done some grassroots works before, and I've actually gave advice to people who actually own 2 to 3 room flats.
Okay.
And as you know, 2 to 3 room flats nowadays is at least 300,000 to $500,000, right? Yep. That's still quite a substantial amount of money, right? I mean, nobody is going to say that, oh, I'm going to walk away from a few $100,000 worth of my inheritance because it's small. So I would say that, no, it's not just for the rich. It's actually for everybody. But of course, the more assets that you have, the more complex it will be. Yeah. And of course, that's where proper structuring will come in. So I would say, yeah, everybody needs it, but it's just how complex it becomes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So typically for a HDB owner, it's very layman in terms where they own one property, and the common, I would say, way of them being able to pass it on to their kids is just like, saying a very broad term and say that, I'll just will my HDB to my kids. Is there any implications on that, or is that something that is typical and that's what you supposed to do?
I think one thing that people also have to remember is that HDB has their own rules, right? They have their own eligibility rules. So let's say if you have 2 kids, one of them decides to, go overseas, you send him for studies in Australia, he never comes back, and that person becomes a foreigner, right? So can a foreigner own a HDB? You can't. So obviously, if you will it to your 2 children equally that way, one of them is not an eligible beneficiary, so that will create problems, right? And the problem is that whoever inherits will have to sell it.
Yep.
The foreigner will have to sell it, right? So as estate planners also, we also have to understand a little bit of the HDB rules, but of course not as deep as property professionals like yourself. But for us, it's more about the eligibility rules. So that when we talk to clients, okay, we want to make sure that, okay, number one, the children are, or rather the beneficiaries are eligible.
Yeah.
Right? So let's say you have beneficiary, usually let's say, again, you have 2 children, one of them married, has his own flat, and the other one is single, staying in the flat with you. Again, if you give it 50-50, right? The one that's older cannot own the 50% because he's already a HDB owner. So that again creates complication. So basically that's what we do, is that we try to iron out all these complications. But of course, we must also remember that estate planning is something that's very fluid. Because now we are planning is what happens in the next maybe 1 or 2 years. But let's say if your second child gets married and move out, then you basically have 3 HDBs within this family circle, right?
Yeah.
So you have to basically liquidate the HDB that you're staying upon your passing, if to pass it to them. Yeah.
Okay. So starting from the basics, I think we want to understand why wills are very important, especially once someone owns a property.
With a will is about intention, right?
Okay.
End of the day, the whole point of estate planning is to let people know your intention.
Yeah.
So in a will, it is important to state how you want your property to be divided, how you want it to be handled, right? So, instead of, let's say, telling, bringing back the case, you have 2 children that already has HDB flat, instead of just, I want to pass it to them and let them settle on their own, right?
Yeah.
Just put it in your will that, okay, upon my demise, the executor will actually liquidate my flat, and then the proceeds will just be given to the children. So it's easier. It's basically better and easier implementation.
Yeah.
And of course, in the will is to give instructions on what actually belongs to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess one of the biggest misconception, this is a little bit out of property, is that we talk about joint accounts.
Yeah.
So joint account for bank and joint tenancy for property, a lot of people think it's all the same.
Okay.
But it's actually a very, very different concept.
Okay.
So in a joint tenancy for property owner, both property owners are considered 100% owners.
Yes.
Means if party A passes away, party B is 100% owner, and
so
vice versa.
Survivorship. Yeah.
Yep. Whereas joint account doesn't work like that. A joint account is not due to ownership, but it's more due to administration.
Okay.
Meaning that, let's say, if you have an elderly parent who has, let's say, 5 children, right? And one of the child will have a joint account with the parent, so that it's easier for administration, easy for me to go and withdraw money, to deposit money and all that, right? But end of the day, the money in the bank account might not be belonging to the child. It might be everybody contributes and all that, right? So imagine that upon the parent passing away, the older child, or rather the child that is in a joint account name, decides that, because I'm in a joint account, I'll just take all the money out and it's all mine. So obviously it's not fair to the rest, right?
Yeah.
So if the parent actually wrote in the will that the money in this joint account belongs to me and is to be distributed among like 5 children equally, that would be what will happen, or what's supposed to happen.
Okay.
So in that way, why I'm sharing this is to warn people that why you need to do planning is because a lot of people have joint account and assume that upon passing, the surviving party will have the freedom of just accessing the account. But in truth, banks will actually freeze the account once they know that one party passes on and will only release the money upon probate, which can take up to 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I hope your audience will actually know about. Because people tend to conflate between joint account in bank and joint account, joint tenancy in ownership and think they're all the same. They're both 100% owners. So no, it's not like that.
Okay. So on the flip side, I think if I were to say having a will is really important, especially when you own a property. What would happen if somebody does not have a will? What are the complications for these people?
I would say in normal civil law circumstance, then you'll just pass through the Intestate Succession Act. So meaning that if you are, if it's just you alone and your parents, then obviously your parents will inherit. If it's you are married and your parents are still alive, you have no children, then 50% to your parents, 50% to your wife, things like that. But also just remember that when it comes to the Succession Act and all that, I'm sure you have Muslim audience. So Muslim inheritance works very differently. So that's something that they have to be mindful about. And all that. So I would suggest don't leave it to chance. Let your intentions be known and get something done.
Okay, so in relation to what I do as a property agent, we tend to maximize or I would say analyze someone's property portfolio. And then if they are able to, or if they can, they should afford a couple of properties on hand. So for example, the typical notion where people sell one buy two, a lot of people out there or Singaporeans out there, they are multiple property owners. So in this case, because they have properties or multiple properties under their own names, while having a spouse, while having kids, how is this important? Or what would be a red flag in terms of having a will or not having a will? What would you advise the person to do?
I mean, having a lot of properties and not knowing what to do with them is a very good problem, right? I also wish I have that kind of problem. So I would say that, yes, maybe just share based on experience. I deal with a lot of high net worth, a lot of ultra high net worth, and of course, a big part of their portfolio is properties. Right? There's no denying that property is a very, very good asset to hold. I think number one, the problem would be the different in the values of the two properties, right? Let's say property A is valued at 1 million, property B is valued at 4 million. Different area, maybe different amenities. Some place shoot up more than the others, right? So how do you equalize it? If it's two properties, it's easier. You can equalize by saying, okay, maybe property B is to be sold, and then the proceeds to be equalized together with property A and then to be given to the beneficiaries. But sometimes the property might not be a condo. Sometimes the landed property people want to keep because of, sentimental reasons, right? They want to make it their family home, So one way is actually to use insurance to equalize it. So let's say you have 1 million and 4 million. So you buy insurance that's equal to, let's say, 3 million and then give it to, let's say, two beneficiaries, But these are just very, very simple analogies. But to be honest, when the wealthy want to do planning, it's actually much more deeper than that. So, okay, maybe I can share a story of one of my clients. He has about 5 properties. Okay, about 3 of them are landed. How did he buy so much, right? Is that, okay, he has his own property. He bought property A. So his own property, let's say it's property A. Then he have property B, which is he put under his first child's name. Property C, second child's name. Property D, third child name. Then the next one is property E is on the 4th child, right? All the properties are of different value because obviously he didn't buy at the same time. He saw, okay, what was good at the time in the market, he bought. He saw something that's nice, he bought. So it's all a span of about maybe 7-8 years. Now, what's the complicated thing is that the owner of this property doesn't stay here. It's a second child that stays here. And then the second child's property is empty, but the third child's property, the first one is staying there. So it becomes, you don't want a situation where upon his passing, right, then each child wants to sell the property, and then also the thing is that the property they're selling, actually they're not staying there. So you're going to kick your own sibling out. And then number two is that you must remember, because the properties are bought under their name, right? Technically the father doesn't own the property, but he's the one that paid for everything. So how does he equalize it? How does he make sure that, okay, at the end of the day, I have a property that's valued at 10 million versus a property that's valued at 2 million? How do I make sure that it's all equal? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what we did was we got the kids to sign up, basically they did a loan with the dad, right? And then all these loan letters actually became assets, and this asset was placed into a trust. Yeah.
Okay.
So this was one of the most complicated cases which I've handled. Of course, the solutions are deeper than that, but this is just on the very basis on how property actually can be a good problem, but it can also create bad problems in terms of harmony for the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question is, I think it's quite obvious that people associate estate planning to death, right? Like I was saying, as morbid as it sounds, I think planning for what's going to happen after your demise is important, right? Why is a lasting power of attorney just as important in this aspect?
So as you mentioned, that a will is a document that only comes into effect after death.
Yeah. Okay.
But let's talk about if you are not dead, let's say mental incapacity. So mental incapacity can mean Alzheimer's, can mean comatose state. Okay. Now, in terms of under the Mental Incapacity Act, there's also different levels and all that.
Yep.
Okay. So I think for that, you actually have to talk to a lawyer or a doctor for that. But basically, a lasting power of attorney gives the power to someone else, a donee, to handle your affairs.
Yeah.
Your affairs as in your property and assets, and also your welfare.
Yeah.
So there's basically two in Singapore that you can do, Form 1 and Form 2. There's two versions. Form 1 is the most simple. It's the cheapest version, where it's just basically you picking somebody to be in charge of your property and or welfare. You can choose 1% or 2%. So in charge of property, it's not like property in the sense of the word or just in charge of your house, but basically your bank account and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right? So your donee will have, let's say you have a donee that's in charge of your bank, your property. It means they have access to your bank account, to your investment account, and on what to do with your house.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then you can have the same donee or different donee to be in charge of your welfare. That's where they can choose where do you stay, who can visit you, for them to actually employ a helper or a nurse, to help you and all that. So that's what the one that's in charge of the welfare does.
Yeah.
So that's Form 1. So it's very simple, generic.
Yeah.
But if you want something that's a little bit more specific, more, has a little bit more intention, that's where Form 2 comes in. So Form 2 will have to be done by a lawyer, where it's very specific, where it's like, okay, you have property, you have house A. You want house A to be sold, then you have house B. You want house B to be remain and kept by, like maintained. I would say maintained by this particular person. You have your investment account to be looked after by this child, but in conjunction with external asset manager. So it's very complicated, where you want your assets to be very specifically handled, and also maybe not so much for welfare, but sometimes also I've also come across individuals where they do have a family, but they actually don't really trust the families, so they do get Form 2 done so that their properties and assets will be handled by a trust company.
Yeah.
And some people would assume, your personal welfare will be done by a family member, but there are even professional donees out there that actually do welfare also, like social workers and lawyers, right? Okay. They have to be registered, of course, by the Public Guardian Office. But yeah, I've seen it that, even though someone has a spouse, he actually chose to have a professional donee as a welfare because he has issues with the spouse. So these are the things that's available, and must remember, this is planning before he passed on.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are things that we talk to clients and try to understand them and also do such plannings lah.
Yeah. Okay, so when you talk about donees, right? Who can be appointed as a donee, and what typically happens if there isn't one in place? Yeah.
Let's say someone has not done LPA.
Yep.
And something needs to be some legal thing needs to be done. Okay, for example, maybe just to give you an analogy. I've had a client before whose parents they actually had a flat at Ang Mo Kio area. Okay, then the father had dementia, right? And then they were the lucky ones where I think that time they had SIRS.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we talk property and SIRS, it's a very lucky thing, right? But because they are joint owners, the father couldn't sign because he had dementia, right?
Yeah.
So because the father did not have any LPA, the son will actually had to go to court to apply to administer such decisions on the father's behalf.
Okay.
Yeah. So it can be done. You go to the court, just that you waste money. It cost him, this was about maybe 15 years ago, it cost him about $3,000, $4,000. Yeah. Wow. Just to get that done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think back to that topic, right? I remember having a client who was an administrator, but not a beneficiary. Reason is because his grandparents had a couple of properties in Singapore. They didn't have a will, and because he's the grandson, he became the administrator, but the beneficiaries were his parents and his uncles. So in your experience, what actually went wrong there? Like, is it because there's no will, that's why it became a complicated case? And if you're an administrator but not a beneficiary, it's what is in it for them? That's what I want to know.
Basically, an administrator is the same as an executor in the will.
Okay.
That means they are appointed to actually follow out the instructions of the will.
Okay.
Right? So if you have a will, you go to court and apply for a letter of probate.
Yeah.
If you have no will, you go to court and apply for a letter of administration.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing about doing all this is that you are sometimes liable for anything that's done wrongly. So I would say as an administrator, it's much easier because you are following the intestate law.
I see.
Basically, you're just doing out the administration of the properties that is following the intestate law. Meaning that, let's say for your client's case, right? the grandparents, let's say, had 5 properties and left to their children, which is his uncle and let's say his father, right? So his job is just to make sure that he goes. Let's say if it's a landed property, he goes to SLA to get all the title deed changes and things like that, right? Yeah. So he doesn't like, no, you get 50%, you get 20%, I get 30%, things like that. No, he just does the administration part. Now things only get complicated, ironically, is that when you have a will, and the executor actually has a very big responsibility to make sure that the will has, he follows the will to the letter of the law, right? And the executor is liable if things are not done properly. Yep. So there has been cases in Singapore where the executor got sued by the beneficiaries, and it's of course not a very good thing to hear, lah. Yeah. So going back to the question, I would say as administrator, you are just doing legwork for nothing. Yeah. But if it's your family member, then it's a good deed, lah. That's all I would say. Okay. But the only thing is when you have a will and an executor, that's a bigger responsibility, lah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now this is property specific, and I want to know if someone inherits a HDB, right? After it was shortly purchased, how does the minimum occupation period affects this whole situation?
So let's say now the MOP is 5 years, or let's say someone buys a new Prime or Plus, the one that's 10 years MOP, right? Okay, to make it simple, let's say someone buys a normal HDB. After 2 years, he passes on. The HDB passed down to his only child. Yep. Okay, the child can only sell that flat upon finishing that flat's MOP of 5 years. Okay. Yep. But of course, let's say the question is, what if that child owns his own HDB and then he inherits another HDB that's 3 more years to MOP? So how? I would say that in such cases, right, I'll be very honest, HDB is very flexible. So I would say in this case, to actually approach HDB and ask them what to do, because there is, I would say, there's really no hard and fast rule. Yeah. Like if you talk about, let's say, okay, if the beneficiary doesn't own a HDB, then of course he'll be the owner of the HDB. He cannot sell it only after the MOP. But if he's already a HDB owner, right, and he inherits the HDB that still has the MOP period, HDB cannot tell him, hey, okay, I need to sell your house and you keep the one that has the MOP, right? So I would say in such circumstances, just approach HDB and ask them, okay, what should I do here? Because there's so much factors into play, the eligibility, things like that. Yeah. So that's why this all boils down to getting the correct advice and doing proper planning whenever you have made a big purchase and things like that.
Yeah. So I think linking up to that situation, I think there's a lot of changes especially when it comes to HDB, and for us as property agents as well, we need to keep abreast with whatever that's happening. Is there a difference for older flats when it comes to inheritance? Because I've known about this, but I just want to hear it from you. What is the difference between inheriting an older HDB versus a newer HDB, for example? Yeah.
Okay, so let's say you have parent A who bought a flat before 30th August 2010.
Yeah.
Okay. And the parent bequeaths this flat to the child who owns a private property.
Yes.
Right? So imagine the child has a private property and then he inherits a flat, a HDB flat. So if the flat was bought before that time, 30th August 2010, he can actually keep both.
Yeah.
But of course, subject to the HDB eligibility, means he has to be a Singaporean or PR, so he can keep both. But any flat that's bought after that, you will have to sell one of them.
Yeah.
So you can't keep both. Yeah. But if we put it the other way around, this has nothing to do with an older flat or something, but let's say if you are a HDB owner and you inherit a private property, okay, you can keep both.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, subjected to certain eligibility rulings.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that again, you have to check at a point of time, because as you know that such rulings do change here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, in your experience, what are the most common situations where family are forced to sell a property?
I would say, okay, I have had one client who owns a GCB and he has 2 kids, right? And he was saying that, hey, when I pass away, of course, my second child doesn't have a house. My first child, I will give, enough cash lah, okay, to make that first child happy, and I'll give the GCB to the second child. Now, if somebody says they want to give a GCB to you, will you be very happy?
Oh, to me,
yeah,
of course.
Of course, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But people forget one thing. Yes, the value is very big, but does the second child have the ability to upkeep the GCB?
Yeah.
I would say, to upkeep a house of that size is running cost of at least $8,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right? And on top of that, your property tax is going to be 5 digits.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine the child. The child was only working as a teacher.
Okay.
Right? So I told the father, I said, you're going to get your child every year when she inherits the GCB, right? Most of her pay will be paying the property tax. The other half of the pay is to pay the upkeep of the GCB. Every she have a nice property, but every day she eat bread lah.
Yeah.
So in that case, it was worked out that upon his demise, the GCB is to be sold lah.
Okay.
Because it just makes more financial sense. Because people always think that even now, let's be honest, even a landed property, even a semi-D, it's not an easy property to upkeep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the value is there, but if you don't have the ability as a beneficiary to upkeep the property, you are forced to sell such properties, right?
Yeah.
So again, these are good problems which I would like to have, but these are very realistic problems where people don't see. They just think that, oh, I inherit a GCB. Wow.
Yeah.
And you must also remember that if planning is not done to upkeep the GCB when the person passes on, because then again there'll be problem.
Yeah.
Why? You would know very well. GCB is not something that if I want to sell today, I get to sell it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right? It takes months, years even, because your pool of potential buyers is so small.
Yes.
So in that time, if planning is not done properly, right, to upkeep the house, then the owners are forced to actually, I can't sell this GCB for 50 million. Yeah, just tell the agent, just lower down until whoever give you think is a reasonable price, 35, 40 million, I just sell. Then you're losing a lot of money like that. Yeah. So planning has to be done to make sure that there's actually enough liquidity in the estate to actually fund the running of the house for at least 1 to 2 years. Yeah.
Okay. So talking about liquidity, I think I'm assuming, because I'm not in your industry, that in estate planning, property being an instrument is the biggest part of the estate planning, right? So how do you address this? Because like you said earlier, property is not as liquid as, for example, investment linked funds, which you can just liquidate at any time you want. So how does that affect, or how does that impact your clients?
Okay, so you are right to say that property is actually that makes up a big chunk of most people's asset portfolio, right? So that's why it brings me back to what I said before, is to talk to an estate planner to actually see what are all your assets. And then how are all your beneficiaries? What's the dynamic of your beneficiaries? What are the earning ability, right? And then from there, your planner can actually help you with how to equalize it. Because sometimes if it has to be sold, it has to be sold, right? So at least you know that property B, C, D is, at the end of the day, it's just investment, is to be liquidated, right? But also, we must remember that in Singapore's context, the law allows the first transfer, when you pass on, to be free of stamp duty.
Okay.
So don't waste that, because as property agent, stamp duty is a very, very big thing that you talk to clients every day.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean by that is like some people would just say, okay, I will my landed property to my 2 children. Let's say the 2 children are also staying in private. So technically they can own 2 properties each, right?
Yeah.
Or rather now is 1.5. Now what the problem will be is that, let's say you have the parent that wills it to the 2 children. And the 2 children just say, okay, now we are both owners of this property. Now what we do, we sell it. So when they sell this property, what is triggered? Seller's stamp duty.
Yeah.
So if the intention has always been to liquidate, why don't you just liquidate at the estate part? So you're not triggering the seller's stamp duty. So you're actually saving money like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so before we go, I think there's one last question that I really want to ask. Despite the fact that estate planning is very important, I think the most important is if anybody owns a property, you need to do some form of estate planning. But what is the most common mistake that when it comes to estate planning, what these homeowners are doing, in your opinion?
To be honest, not talking to one.
Not talking. Okay.
No, I think that I would say...
Can they actually do estate planning by themselves without consulting an expert in this field?
Definitely. I mean, everyone... Okay, it's like, for example, is it possible for someone to buy a house in Singapore without a property agent? They can.
Yes.
But there's so much danger in that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. There might be something they're not sure of.
Yeah.
They might not be paying the right things. They might be getting somewhere that's really bad.
Yeah.
Or just some administrative thing that they might regret later. So why do we get professionals like yourself? So that we save ourselves from future problems, right? Yeah. Or if we have problems, we got somebody to blame.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that yes, you can do your own planning if it's very, very, very simple.
Okay.
And what I mean by very simple, in fact, I would say the most simplest estate planning I've done is a single woman in her 60s who is not married, who doesn't have children, and who owns a dog. That's it. So the planning was basically, okay, she has assets. The moment she passed on, okay, her brother will look after the dog. There's money to give the brother to look after the dog. Once the dog passes away, which won't take too long, then the brother and the sister will enjoy whatever she has earned, and the niece and nephew, right? So that's the most simplest estate planning.
Yeah.
I would say that the moment you have a child, even if one child, if the one child is not married, it's simpler. But if the child is married, just remember there's another party that's involved. And I'll be very honest, a lot of times when I talk to the really wealthy families and all that, the biggest gripe they have is what happens if my child divorces. Will the spouse inherit, or will the spouse be eligible for some of my money?
Yeah.
So that's where we come in to make sure that we ring fence all this. So yes, if you feel that you want to talk about ring fencing your even 1 or 2 property, to against your future in-laws, talk to an estate planner.
Yeah,
I think that's really important. And don't think that I am not wealthy enough to plan. as I said in the very beginning, even as long as you have a HDB flat, it's a few $100,000 already.
Yeah.
So you don't want, because, and let's be honest, families have fought over money that's much lesser than that.
Yeah.
So talk to someone that actually helps to make your planning to minimize all these potential issues.
Yeah. Okay, Kenneth, that's our time today. I won't take up too much of yours. So if you find this content or this small session or a short session that we had with Kenneth, and if you want to find out more, I'll probably leave the QR code at the end of this video. And if you'd like to find out more about real estate, I'll also leave my contacts behind. So thank you, Kenneth, again for making time to speak to us, and we hope to work together more often.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nabila. Thank you.
All right.